Hi guys, it's Misha and welcome back to my channel. So it's no secret that there has been a growing political polarization occurring in America. It only seems to be getting worse and people from each side seem to hate the other. And I want to talk today about if we can do anything to unite each other and explore what's causing this divide. But before we begin, please remember to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. So I think we all know this by now, but one of the reasons causing this divide is social media, because it tends to push us into an echo chamber where we're only hearing opinions that we agree with. So when I was surrounded by left-leaning people and people who identified as Democrats, it really was an unimaginable thing to be friends with a Republican, let's say. I'm not even exaggerating. We kind of viewed Republicans and conservatives as bigoted, racist, conspiracy theorists, just people you don't want to associate with or even talk to. Like, I guess the left doesn't even want to grant these people a platform where they can discuss their opinions because they're not even worth listening to.
Would you be friends with a Democrat?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys have any Republican friends?
No, thank God.
No.
Why not?
I wouldn't be friends with someone who's Republican.
I think the right is a little bit better with having an open mind about the left and, being willing to discuss issues with people that don't have the same beliefs as them, because there isn't that same cancel culture that we see going on with the radical left and, the woke and the social justice warriors. So that's one good thing, but I can't say that it's completely different. The right still has these stereotypes for the left. There's still this us against them mentality. I know that there are people on the left who are willing to have a conversation. Like, even in my comment section, sometimes I see people who say, oh, Misha, like, I'm on the left and I disagree with you on this point, but I really, really agree with this point that you made. And we have had really great discussions. And I love talking to those kinds of people because, there's an exchange of opinions and we get to, talk about why we disagree with each other. So I don't like this generalization that's happening with both sides. One thing I will say, though, about the left is that a lot of them will say, oh, it's really bad to stereotype individuals. Meanwhile, they are the ones who were calling, when I was on the left, I would hear this all the time. The right is full of white nationalists, racist, sexist, homophobic, bigots, and just don't associate with them. They're not worth talking to. Avoid them at all costs. So a little bit hypocritical. As much as I hear that same sort of stereotyping on the right, I think we've all done that at some point in our life. I feel like the right is just willing to talk to the other side, something I never experienced when I was on the left. It's really like us against them, but taken to a whole nother level. Just talking to a conservative person is dangerous. Like, don't do it. So that's something I'm very glad that I don't have to deal with anymore, that I definitely did have to go through being surrounded by left-leaning people. Basically, what I'm saying is that being an extremist on either side is typically not good, because those sorts of people tend to be very close-minded and not willing to have a conversation with the other side, or resort to name-calling and arguments and also labeling you. And I talk a lot about my dislike for labels, right? And I have discussed this in relation to the LGBTQ community, but I think it's the same thing when it has to do with political identity and labels. So we don't see people as complex individuals who might have a different opinion on different topics, politically speaking. But no, you're conservative, so that must mean that you're this and that. I'm obviously right-leaning, but I say something and it sounds like something a leftist would say, and then maybe someone goes, oh, that sounds like something someone on the left would say. Okay, and? So that's why I can't say it? Like, I have to only stick to what I think aligns with the right so that I can keep that label? No. Like, obviously that doesn't make any sense. So again, I think that this obsession with labels in our society is just dividing us and has a lot to do with the political polarization we see going on, for sure. And there's a lot of misrepresentation in the media on both sides. So if you're only watching CNN or if you're only watching Fox News, It's not letting you see different opinions. And that's terrible because we need to have open-minded individuals to have these negotiations and, try to make the country better. I am much happier being on the right, mostly because on the left, there's this, again, cancel culture. And so if you say something that aligns more with the right, the left will immediately assume all of these things about you and try to give you a label, homophobic, transphobic, whatever, without listening to everything you have to say and without even being open-minded to finding common ground, seeing what you do agree on, which I'm sure exists on the right as well. I know it does, but I find that the left does that a lot more.
For the liberals, the younger the person, the less likely that person was to know someone from the opposite political affiliation, and the more likely they were to assume that the other side was bad, the other side had it out for them. On the conservative side, I think it was sort of the opposite. It was the older folks who were more rigid politically, whereas younger conservatives, were out in the world more, were bumping up more against people with different political views than their own.
For example, I talk a lot about how I don't believe that children should be given access to hormones and, permanently change their body with surgery. That doesn't mean that I hate trans people or that I think that transgender people who are over 18 shouldn't have that right to go on hormones or, get surgery. And that is your decision as an adult. My issue is when you're giving 10-year-olds hormones and telling them that they are trans and that there's no way around, treating their gender dysphoria without immediately giving them access to those hormones, to that surgery. And that's where the issue is for me. And I'm sure that a lot of trans people can agree with me on that. In fact, I know that they do. So that's what that's what really doesn't sit well with me, with people who are on the extreme left. They're just not willing to hear the other side, because I'm sure if they did, they could find some sort of common ground, but they just aren't willing to listen. Or climate change, for example. I love the environment. I care about nature. I really, really do. That doesn't mean that I have to love all of the proposed solutions. With all of these social justice warriors, it's just completely, disregarding what the right has to say. They're not even worth listening to. We should censor them. We should ban them from all the platforms because, they must be hateful. It's a lot of brainwashing that I personally experienced because I had no idea what the right was talking about. And I just assumed that they were all racist and, hillbilly type of people are trying to take away the rights from minorities and, LGBTQ and all of that stuff, because I never thought, what if I talked to someone on the right? What if I actually had a conversation? And on the subject of race, a lot of them will talk about how the right is racist, right? And then say things like, oh, we have to separate each other with how privileged we are based on our race, critical race theory, like an obsession with race, and that's all that we need to talk about, and how to further divide ourselves into categories and subcategories. So again, hypocritical. I think it's so important to talk to each other and, avoid the censorship and protect our freedom of speech. I know that people on the left will often say, oh, well, the right only cares about freedom of speech if it aligns with their views. Wrong. Me personally, I think that both sides should be able to talk about what they want to talk about. We shouldn't censor anybody unless it's straight up calling for violence. That's the amazing thing about democracy. We're allowed to have different opinions and disagree with each other. We're not in a dictatorship, and that's why we have to protect American democracy. There's obviously a reason why so many people from different countries want to come here. We have millions of immigrants coming here, and many risk their lives. So, there's obviously something worth protecting. And that is why it's so sad to see people in America who are now afraid to, have an American flag up. It's true. That's crazy to be ashamed of the American flag while people from other countries believe in the American dream. So again, I think the most important thing that we can do is talk to people, be adults about it, and try to find common ground. Remember that we are all Americans, and to find things that unite us, we all value our freedom. The issue is this lack of communication, in conclusion. So I think that the left is mostly responsible for this. Just from experience, that's what I've witnessed, that the left is a lot less likely to talk to people on the right, to be friends with people on the right. I do see this on the right as well, don't get me wrong, but I have from experience found that people on the right are much more open-minded and willing to talk and to have conversations and not just straight up start screaming and yelling and saying, oh, you're trying to attack me and take away my rights. Something I hear, though, from both sides is, I'm going to use the right, for example. Okay, so let's say I tell you, oh, why aren't you friends with a person on the left, right? They say, well, how can I be friends with someone who is pro-choice? You know, they think it's okay to kill a baby. You should be friends with them. You should try, and you should try to explain yourself and your beliefs and have these civil discussions, and maybe, just maybe, you can make them see things your way, or maybe not. And then maybe you can find other things that you agree on.
Showing their support for Biden, Trump, and each other.
If we have a relationship and we communicate with each other, maybe we're going to come a little bit closer. But you're definitely not going to come up with any answers if you're not speaking to each other.
We're friends. Just because you disagree on something, whether it's little or big, you have to figure out a way to be able to get along with somebody and be civil.
Their tips: be respectful and listen.
If someone has a sign in their yard, that does not define them on every single issue.
Maybe find something that unites you two, and something that you're passionate about that you both agree with, because I'm sure there's at least one thing. So to say that, no, I am not going to be friends with this person because of this issue, or, you know, I'm going to end this friendship because of their political belief, I think it's so silly, and I don't know, like, you have to be adults and you have to have respectful debates with people. It's just part of life. I don't know when we became so sensitive about these issues and why we can't have debates, or why we have to run away from people on the right, for example, or stay away from people on the left as if we are two completely different species. It's kind of sad, honestly. With friendship, you have to both care about each other. You have to try to do what's best for one another, and sometimes put your differences aside in order to make decisions. In this case, make decisions to do what's best for the country. And some people say, oh, well, your idea that we should just communicate, that's naive, right? Okay, call me naive. Like, what's the other option? Civil war? I really don't understand. Give me another solution. If we should just further divide, is that what you think we should do? No. I think that we should put our differences aside for just a second and talk about things that we do agree on, okay? And then we can respectfully debate about things that we disagree with instead of running the opposite way as if the other person has the plague and being so afraid to talk to one another. It is ridiculous. There's an amazing passage I recently read in a book, and basically it said that when diplomats speak, guns are silent. Wars could stop because these people are able to bring everybody together, and that's what we're missing in our country. Just have a conversation. If we don't have a conversation, this divide is only going to get worse. And that's what I really think can unite us. So if you guys have any thoughts about this, please make sure to comment them below. Also remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.